Welcome. Pleased to be with you today. So a quick note that let's see here, in 2 weeks' time, so that'll be Wednesday the 24th, we won't be having a class on Wednesday the 24th. I'm going to be traveling that day to San Diego. There's a small chance I could pull it off, and if so, I'd put it on Facebook. I'd post a message on Facebook, but I'll be traveling that day just due to the in-person retreat. Also, you can mark your calendars that the next online retreat will be Friday, May 31st through June 2nd. That's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday online retreat. So they just keep that on your schedule. Okay, beautiful. Beautiful. I was just speaking with someone within the Sangha, and they were telling me that they often get really angry. And they were saying that they think it has something to do with this Kundalini mixing with their stress and, whatever wound or shadow that each of us may have. And when all these things come together, it can create like a perfect storm for us to have unusually large bouts of emotion or reactivity. And this is one of the common things that Kundalini does. It can be like a fuel, like a rocket fuel for whatever we are already feeling in our consciousness. And the Kundalini is going to push that thing to the surface. And, it's doing this, of course, so that thing can be healed and brought into the light and brought into some form of integration. But there's a very particular teaching that I wanted to bring forward today. And it goes a little something like this. And I noticed this in myself because, when I was younger, I was always doing, and I was doing a lot. I was doing hours and hours of meditation and doing Dharma study. I was working for my teacher, so I was doing all of the 800 things he'd have me do in a day. I was, doing parenting and raising children and trying to start a business and creating a holistic health center. It's a lot of doing. And whenever we're doing a lot, whenever we're doing anything, the ego always has like this background sense of, if I'm doing, I need to be in control, or the things that I'm doing are going to fall apart. And so there's this kind of blending within our egoic identity of doing and control. And it's like efforting and control. And if we spend any time just being deeply mindful, if we look at the root of that is fear, and at the root of that is a mistrust in life. Like, I can't just sit back and let life do its thing, or nothing will happen, or life will take advantage of me, or I'll be hurt. And so there's this kind of preemptive movement of the ego, like it always needs to be on the offensive, always needs to be staying like 1 step or 10 steps ahead of the game. And there's also a fundamental illusion in it, or delusion, and that is this idea, this belief that God, that divine intelligence, is not with us. The belief, when we're fully rooted in a doing, efforting, controlling ego, is it's me against life. It's me against reality. And Kundalini absolutely will put pressure on this belief, because this belief, it's not the truth. From a relative perspective, it's true from an egoic perspective, that yes, we need to fight and assert ourselves and set boundaries and overcome. But from like a non-dual perspective, which is what Kundalini arises out of, the truth is that this is God's world. It's God's will. God is the doer. Sometimes you'll hear, a great non-dual master saying, you are not the doer. And what I found, like on my path, when I was doing all this doing, if you can say that, if I was doing all this doing, when I was efforting so intensely, there began to be this pressure inside of me. And this pressure would often explode in fits of anger or sadness or fear or shaking. And there was, often thoughts of failure, like I'm failing at life and all of this. But I noticed, like, if I just sit, I had all this emotion, but there was like this pressure behind the emotion that made this type of behavior, the doing behavior, very uncomfortable for me. And it created almost like a racing feeling within my consciousness. And so, of course, at some point, through the practice of meditation, I just stopped. And I noticed that I was trying so hard in life, so hard to keep it together. But then there was pressure, the Kundalini pressure, like the pressure of consciousness saying, maybe there's another way, another way of doing, another way that looks more like being, less like doing. And I began to have this breakthrough with Kundalini where all of a sudden the pressure that I was feeling all the time with Kundalini would absolutely release into a flow, but it was a flow that felt so wide. So sometimes the pressure releases and you feel the flow right through the center of the spine. But this felt like I was the flow, that I am the flow, and that the character Craig doesn't have to do so much. And when I came to this recognition, there was just great tears of relief. And what I found is the Kundalini was so happy to be returned to its primal nature. And its primal nature is that Kundalini is all of life. All of life. Whereas before, when I thought there was Craig the doer, and then there's this thing called Kundalini, and all this Kundalini, like a whole river of energy is trying to flow through like this teeny garden hose, like right in the center of my spine. The Shushuma, and we could use all these, yogic terms or Sanskrit terms. But what I found is when I got out of the way, the character Craig got out of the way, when I stopped taking doing so seriously, when I let go and let God literally have my life, do my path, do my life, do the character of Craig, I let God do it. It was like experiencing the relief of 10,000 lifetimes. It just felt like such tremendous relief, and all that pressure, it was making my human consciousness insane. Like my human consciousness on edge, like my human consciousness just feeling like it was going to explode. All that pressure, it wasn't that it dissolved, it was more like it just spread out all across the horizon. And there was this great balancing of the Kundalini Shakti. And of course, a great shift in my consciousness, because you cannot maintain that I'm the doer and I must control and I'm afraid of life and open to this huge experience that I'm speaking about. It's like one or the other is going to dominate us. If we allow the regular human consciousness to dominate us, basically fight or flight and me against the world, while the consciousness of God is trying to come into you, you're going to feel a lot of pressure. That's just like the basic teaching is, if you try to maintain, I'm in charge, I'm the boss, I'm the doer, it's my way, I have to fight for my survival. If you try to maintain this while all of life, Kundalini, all of life is trying to wake up in you, you're going to feel a lot of pressure, because you're going to feel this intersection of this very small human consciousness and this very small view with this absolute view coming into you. And that pressure will be there until you surrender. And after you surrender, it's like, oh my God, like this is so much easier. It's so much easier. It like brings tears to my eyes, just reflecting on how hard it was for me in the past, because I was trying so hard to hold life together, to make life work. And by the way, I wasn't doing a very good job. I was failing. I was failing in every department. And for some of us, like we ask, well, why does Kundalini knock me down so hard? One of the things that the Kundalini is really wanting is just this, is to knock your ego out of its seat of authority. To knock your ego out of its seat of authority. And sometimes life will have to give us a chronic illness, a chronic anxiety, or chronic whatever, whatever great difficulty it is. God gave me so many of those because I was a pretty stubborn fella. And again, when we see from the mind of God, that God's just saying like, hey, just get out of the way and let me take over. And if we surrendered, if we say yes, we begin to wake up and realize, oh, I am God. Like I am the divine. That whole ego death thing, or me dying thing, or me being annihilated, that didn't happen. I actually expanded. My true self came online and I got to live as this individual with great freedom from the perspective of the divine. So like the divine being this individual without any sense of doership in it. And that's, again, that's a little bit of a paradox. But again, it feels wondrous. Wondrous. Feels like great relief, where the hilarious joke is so many of us, we hold on so intensely, fighting against the Kundalini, trying desperately to hold on to our egoic identity, when God is trying to give you a much greater identity. And if any of you could remember, like when you went to high school, and then, I'll just like assume like most of you went to college, or just say, like, do you want to hold on to that old high school self? Or do you want to step out of your parents' house, get out into the world and live your own life and have your freedom? And of course, this awakening is a greater manifestation of that, greater manifestation of that freedom. And so, as always, I'm going to invite us to close our eyes and just gently feel into your human nature. Just in a general sense. And just noticing how Kundalini Shakti is putting pressure on our human sense. And so, can we take some deep breaths and begin to let go of our attachment to our human egoic mind, to that mind that wants to control, that mind that does and efforts so much. And can we just breathe and soften and begin to trust that we can let go and let God. That we can let go and let God. And so we will more specifically kind of scan the body, because we tend to hold on in all these different somatic ways. We tend to hold on, it's like in our forehead and behind the eyes. And so can we relax there? Some of us hold on, clench in the jaw, in the back of the skull. Some of us hold on and clench and effort, and resist. This whole group of muscles behind the heart. It goes from like the base of the neck, almost like a diamond shape down, below the shoulders, behind the heart, way down into like the solar plexus, the middle back, and just really relaxing all those muscles. And just noticing the ego's pattern of somatically holding on tight and tense. And so softening there, softening the solar plexus, like where the ribs come together in the front. There'll be a lot of doing and efforting out of the solar plexus center. Of course, if we feel down lower into the hara, there may be a little bit of gripping there. A lot of gripping. Again, letting go in the hara. Breathe in and breathe out. Letting go in the hips and the pelvis. The legs, the feet, the arms, the hands. And now just gently inviting the Kundalini to flow. Almost as if we are welcoming it. And just noticing if the Kundalini flows right through the center or if it flows more globally. Almost as if you've jumped into a giant river, the river of life. Feel it flowing through your body, the space of your room, the space of your home. You can hear some birds chirping outside, and this aliveness is flowing through all of life. And just seeing that this one energy we call it life, whether we call it Kundalini Shakti, this energy is life, is doing life, is living life. While we sit here doing nothing. And so can we begin to trust can we begin to trust more fully that you are life, that life is happening, that you can more consciously surrender any sense of doing, any sense of fighting, any sense of controlling. Even it's like envisioning your body just melting down into the earth, into primordial source of life. And getting comfortable with allowing life to move through you effortlessly. Effortlessly. And you might even just gently scan your consciousness and see if there is something within your human consciousness that's ready to let go more fully. Let go of the doing, the efforting, the resisting. There's some part of you that is ready to deeply let go and let God. Let God take over. So you take a deep, full inhale and a deep, full exhale. And I surrender this. I let go and I let God take over the steering wheel of my life. And just gently noticing how the Kundalini comes more into harmony and balance as we let go and let God. Let God be the healer, God be the doer, God figure out the finances or the vocation, God figure out the trauma healing, God figure out what to do with all this energy. We let go and we let God. And so